Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. 21-10 is the score. What's the name of this bowl, by the way? Sugar?
That's just the BCS
Just
National
the BCS
Championship.
National Bowl. Doesn't have a Doritos / Bank of America NC.
They're playing
1C.
it in the Rose Bowl.
They're playing in the Rose Bowl. I was going to say, no, weather's not a factor here. 21-10 going into the half. Of course, Auburn in a surprising lead right now.
It's the AshleyMadison.com Bowl.
It should be. That's what we are. Listen, we are here. My first guest is someone who I'm very happy to have here. It's a pleasure to have him here. He is the son of a pure legend. I mean, a national legend, but in New York City, just a guy that you know his voice like better than you know people in your family's voice if you're a sports fan. And he has gone on to carry the torch and is amazing at what he does himself. It's a pleasure to listen to him do a game. Of course, I'm talking about Kenny Albert. What's up, Kenny?
Great to be here, Artie.
Yeah, thanks, man. Now, tell me, Marv Albert, of course, your father. Again, people think about football and basketball, but listening to him do a hockey game is really like a ballet. It's just like what your father doing a hockey game was. And I noticed you seem to like that a lot too. Growing up, was this something like at what age did you want to do this? Like following your father's footsteps?
Well, it really goes back to when I was 5 years old, believe it or not. And
Like that voice, just hearing that voice is perfect,
And I got a tape recorder for my birthday from my parents.
Right.
Loved sports, loved tagging along with him even at the young age. And I started announcing games in my bedroom.
Would he bring you to games?
Into the tape recorder. I would go to games.
Okay.
And I would sit in seats sometimes, sit in the broadcast booth. And, I was asked the question the other day. I was never told you have to go into this. I was never forced. But I always loved it. It was what I was around as a child.
And you announced the games into a...
I had my bedroom set up, believe it or not, almost like your studio, except there was a bed in between the TV and the desk.
Right.
I had my desk, I had the bed, the TV, and I would write the rosters out in notebooks, and I had the old tape recorder, and I would actually call games off the television.
You're a big sports fan, too. That helps.
Huge sports fan. Yep.
Now, what was your favorite sport growing up? Did you have one?
Growing up, it was probably hockey. Loved all sports.
Right.
Loved watching football and basketball and baseball, but really took to hockey. I played hockey a little bit, still play once in a while, and like you said, he did the Rangers and Knicks at the time, and also the 11 o'clock news, so he would be going back and forth between WNBC to Madison Square Garden, back to WNBC, and those were such fun times for me to tag along, like I said, and things would sink in via osmosis. I would learn about the business, but as a kid, hockey was probably my favorite.
Well, I went to a Ranger Islander game at the Garden, and probably in about 1990. My buddy Danny McGrath had become a cop, and he got seats through a cop connection in New York, and we sat 4 seats away from where your father did the game. So your father's looking at the game, we were looking at the game too, and we were 4 seats to the right of him. And we watched him announce it as much as we watched the game. I would look at how fast he spoke and how he didn't make a mistake. And hockey's such a fast-moving thing. Compared to, I always did an impression of Jim Gordon. I did it in my stand-up act. How many people, by the way, how many people are going to do that, people? My first national stand-up comedy special, I did 10 minutes on Jim Gordon.
And I love watching, not only did Jim Gordon do the Giants radio, but along with the big whistle, Bill Chadwick, they were the TV voices of the Rangers.
And your father was the antithesis of Jim Gordon in the sense that Jim Gordon was a pleasure to listen to. He was so entertaining. But Jim Gordon made mistake after mistake. So I was a bit of a gambler for a while. So if you had a bet on the game, you're like, Giants have the ball, 4th and goal from 1, Tillman alone setback, handoff, Tillman, maybe. No, wait, I can't see it. Now word from Toyota. But with hockey, we go, Pavlich, Bozzi, Trottier over to Messier, Trottier, score, no save, Resch. Back out over the blue line. Donnybrook, middle of the ice, gloves down, sticks down. We got a Donnybrook. Messier on Trottier on Messier. I can't see it. Now word from Johnson baby shampoo.
One of my favorite Jim Gordon stories, he and Bill Chadwick would do the games, and Bill was a former referee, and he was actually blind in one eye.
Wow.
He lost an eye. A stick came up and hit him in the eye. And they used to call the games from all the way upstairs at the Garden, and they were looking down at the bench, and Bill Chadwick says, Jim, I don't see Ron Dugas on the bench. He must have gotten hurt. And Jim Gordon says, you got great eyesight, Bill. And then Bill says, you're half right, Jim.
Oh, you got great eyesight. Oh, I'm half right. What the hell are you talking about? No, wait. It says here you're blind. I'm sorry. And having a bet on the game, you'd go, I'd have to wait through a Toyota commercial to find that if I was going to college that semester.
The last time I placed a bet on a sporting event, I was about 13 years old. And some of the games were on delayed tape on Channel 9. The Rangers would play a Saturday night game at 7:30, but they would start the broadcast at 8 on television.
And all you need is a bookie without a team.
They were playing in Hartford. The game started at 7:30. I was listening on the radio.
Right.
So Mike Rogers scored for the Rangers. So I called my friend. I said, I bet Mike Rogers is going to score the first goal in this game. It was coming on TV at 8 o'clock. He calls me up. How'd you know that?
Oh,
unbelievable.
Dude, the worst, I'm going to tell. See, that's why that's the classy version of that story. Here's the dirtbag version. Here's the kind of dirtbag I was. I grew up with a Celtic fan, my buddy Kevin. Reggie, who was the great forward who died? Reggie Lewis?
Reggie Lewis.
Okay, Reggie Lewis. I'm driving over to meet my buddy at a sports bar. I hear Reggie Lewis died. Breaking news. I get out of the car, and it's before phones and stuff. There's no way he could have heard that. It's the beginning of the basketball season. I say, dude, I'll bet you $1,000 Anthony Mason scores more points than Reggie Miller this year.
Reggie Lewis.
Reggie Lewis this year. He goes, dude, you're high. I'm like, dude, come on. So he made the bet, and then like the next morning I get a call from him. Dude, you are the sickest mother ever. If you think you're getting a dime with that money. So you do it the classy way, I do it the dirtbag way. But no, your father. But so people would say your father was perfect. He would never make a mistake. Going. But what was great about your father was he did have an edge, and you have a little bit of this too, which is great. Where he had a certain sarcasm in his voice. If a bad player did something good, he would seem surprised. A very little hint of being surprised, which was so funny, and our friends picked up on it. Like Eddie Lee Wilkins on the Knicks, not a big scorer, but sometimes he would go, Van Noy over to Ewing. Ewing kicks out. Oh, Eddie Lee Wilkins gets on the scoreboard. And the way he would do, Eddie Lee Wilkins. That little going up high was just so funny.
And don't forget Ken the Animal Bannister. He had some great years.
See, I could talk to you for 4.5 hours. But so now, what about I have such respect for you, too, because what pressure going into it's like Jordan's kid playing basketball. I mean, what pressure you have. And I say this to Joe Buck, who I love, too. What was that like?
Did you love him on his initial show?
Listen, I was always friendly with him. I went nuts on an HBO show. What are you gonna? But
and then he wrote the forward to your book, right?
He was a good man.
He's a great guy. I've known him for 20 years.
Yeah.
I never really felt pressure, although that might seem strange on the outside.
Yeah.
But grew up again, like I said, announcing the games into a tape recorder. When I was 16 years old, a local cable station came to my school, my high school out on Long Island. They were going to film a girls' basketball game. I volunteered to do the play-by-play, so I got some great experience through the years. And
a girls' basketball game, let's face it, a little slower. It's easier to do.
Right, exactly. So last 3 years of high school, experience doing all kinds of sports. And then I went to NYU. We did the basketball games.
Perfect.
Men's and women. And then my first job was doing minor league hockey down in Baltimore. A team called the Baltimore Skipjacks. Don't exist anymore, but they were the Washington Capitals affiliate. In fact, my roommate on the road was Barry Trotz, who's still the head coach of the Nashville Predators for the last 15 years. He was our assistant coach. To save money, they stuck the radio announcer in the hotel room.
What a great way
with the assistant coach.
To get your chops, minor league hockey.
Unbelievable experience. I also worked in the office. I had to sell advertising, do PR, do stats. And I wouldn't trade those 2 years in for anything. We had 10-hour bus rides up to Portland, Maine, and Springfield, Massachusetts.
Wow.
But I felt by going away and doing the 2 years of minor league hockey, and then I was down in Washington with the Capitals for 3 years, so a total of 5 years in Maryland that created my own identity, I guess you could say, before coming back up in 95.
You're great at what you do, Ken. You really are. I love listening to the game. You're awesome at it, but it is hard. And did your father go to Syracuse?
He did.
He did, right?
He did.
Was there pressure to go there? Because you're talking about a long line of...
Well, I was such a hockey fan that I wanted to go somewhere where there was an NHL team.
Right.
So that kind of narrowed it down in the East to New York, Boston, or Washington. So many great broadcasters came out of Syracuse. He was up there.
Costas went there, too.
Right.
Yeah.
And Dick Stockton, Mike Tirico, a long line. He was up there in the early 60s, but he had also interned for Marty Glickman, who was doing the Knicks and the Giants at the time. So in high school,
what a great guy to
he
know,
did stats for Marty Glickman. And Marty, the first game he ever did was a Knicks game in '63, I think, in Boston. He was 22 years old. Marty Glickman was stuck in a snowstorm in Europe. He had gone over to do a track meet.
Okay.
So he got to fill in on a Knicks game
50 years he's been doing
50
it.
years ago.
All right, well, we've got to take a break. The great Kenny Albert is here, and we'll talk. I want to ask John Ritchie what it was like not growing up in the New York area, what Marv Albert was like to him, and I want to ask you about the first couple of years doing the pro games, and maybe your colleagues and everything, how they treated you. But you're amazing now. We're happy to have you here. Kenny Albert after this.
The Artie Lange Show, weeknights on Audience, only on DirecTV.